Have questions about the carnivore diet? That's what I'm here for. Hi, I'm Jen, and if you're new here, I am delighted to meet you. I'm a doctor of physical therapy, and I've experienced radical healing on a carnivore diet, and I would love to help you do the same. Today, I'm letting you in on the replay of a live Q&A that I did with all kinds of different questions about the carnivore diet, and I find that a lot of people have the same questions, so you may have some of these yourself. In the caption, I've timestamped all the questions so you can kind of peek through there and see if any particular question pertains to you, or you can watch the whole video. Enjoy! Okay, so we're gonna dive right in. I've got about probably 15 questions that you guys have asked ahead of time. I'm gonna get through all those and I will take your questions if you have them tonight. And let me just tell you about why I'm not gonna go live next week, because I'm going on vacation, finally. First vacation in 6 months, and I'm going to Colorado for a week. So when I get back, I will resume doing these lives, but I'm gonna start doing them with guests like I used to back in the day, and it'll be sort of like interview style / Q&A, but it'll be cool because you can ask questions to people that are experiencing different things or experts in different things. So I look forward to that. If you have any particular person you'd like me to have on, or if you would like to be on, send me a DM and we can talk that through. So thank you all for being here. And my first question, I'm gonna get these boring ones over with. No offense to the askers, but it's just that we talk about this all the time. So Jamie asked, how long did it take for you to start seeing results after starting the carnivore diet? So I think it's different for everybody, of course, but for me, I started noticing improvements in my skin, my psoriasis issues, after about 6 weeks. Now for the first 3 weeks, it got worse, but I was feeling okay. Like I was losing like a few pounds, probably water weight, of course, and I was feeling decent, at least compared to what I expected to feel like. So I kept at it. And then at around 6 weeks, it started to get a little bit better. And so the next question is basically that. How long before you noticed improved skin conditions? This person is 3 weeks in and down 13 pounds. So awesome, way to go on the weight loss. 3 weeks is probably not enough to notice a big difference. Give it at least 2 months, I would say, to start noticing some change. But for some people with skin stuff, that's deep issues. Sometimes it takes 2 to 6 months or so. And I will say I've recently started learning a lot more about oxalates from Sally Norton. I just finished her book today. I actually have it right here. It's drying because I spilt a bunch of water on it. See, it's wet. But this book is great and it's all about oxalates. And so some people, if they were eating a lot of high oxalate foods before, which is oxalate is in plants, you can have some oxalate dumping issues, which can result in worsening skin for a while. I won't go super into that yet. I'm not an expert on that. I'm actually interviewing Sally about it tomorrow. So I hope to learn more. And if you have questions about that, let me know. Next question. This is from my friend Ian. He said, tell me about the Buffalo Wild Wings hack for carnivore friendly dining. So I don't know if this is a hack, but Buffalo Wild Wings is the only place that I know of that cooks their wings in tallow as opposed to some sort of vegetable oil. I've called around a bunch of places. I actually had a video that went viral. I called a couple local wing places. I called Pizza Hut. I called Wingstop, and they all use soybean oil. Maybe not all soybean, but all some sort of vegetable oil. However, Buffalo Wild Wings uses tallow. So not a seed oil, less inflammatory. As carnivores, we love that. So that's a great thing about Buffalo Wild Wings. I wish they were paying me to say this, but I do think it's a great restaurant to go if you're carnivore. There's Lucy deciding if she wants to come out. But the sauces that they use, they do have seed oils in them and sugar and all that crap. So what I get and what most of my carnivore friends on here get is naked wings, which means, well, first of all, bone-in wings, not the boneless ones that are like dipped in batter or whatever, breaded, that's the word. But the traditional wings, naked, which means no sauce on them, and then extra crispy gives them a little more crunch. They're cooked in that tallow a little bit longer. And myself and some of my other carnivore friends like to do the flats only. So there's like the drum part that looks like a chicken leg, and then the flat is like 2 little bones with some meat in between. I don't know. But that part I find to be a little more moist. So that's what I order. This is what I say. I'll have traditional wings, naked and extra crispy, And then I bring my own Redmond real salt and dig in. And I go on Tuesdays when they're buy one, get one free. So I'll usually get like 10 that I pay for and get 10 more for free. So I guess that is a pretty good hack. Okay, another restaurant question that was pre-submitted, and then I'll go into that question box. Okay, and then my next question, let me breathe for a sec. I feel like my words are coming out of my mouth too quickly, and I'm having a hard time getting them to make sense. Trust me, I'm not having a stroke. I've just been like going too much today. Brett, I'll get to your question here in just a sec. Okay, which restaurants have been the best at accommodating your diet? So Buffalo Wild Wings is definitely one of them. Anywhere else with wings, I would definitely ask what they cook their wings in if you care. I suppose some people are just fine getting seed oils here and there, and that's okay. I try to avoid it. So I really only do wings at Buffalo Wild Wings, but I like to go to steak places. So my favorite, because I'm super fancy, is Texas Roadhouse. Seriously, I choose that over expensive fancy steakhouses all the time. And whenever I go to a fancy steakhouse, I always leave thinking, I should have just went to Texas Roadhouse. Basically, I'm a cheap date. But yeah, so steak places are great. Obviously, any place with burgers is super easy. I find that a little bit fancier restaurants are actually pretty good too, because they'll often have like a fancy salad or pasta that you can pay more money to add different proteins to it. So for example, maybe you can pay an extra $5 to add shrimp or steak or chicken or salmon, something like that. And sometimes, actually every time I've ever asked, they will let you order from that menu and just have a plate full of meat. So those kind of restaurants work really well too. The places that I have a hard time with are Mexican, because everything is like cooked in vegetable oils. So I just do the best that I can if I go someplace like that, and maybe don't fret it too much if I'm getting contaminated. And then I actually find seafood to be a little bit tricky too, because again, they use a lot of oils, but I just do my best. And that's what I would suggest that you do as well. Okay, Brett, you asked a question up there. Do you count calories or just eat when you're hungry? I've tried a lot of things, but I think in general, for most carnivores, just eat when you're hungry. Now, if you have no hunger cue, you just tend to overeat completely or undereat completely because you don't have that hunger cue, which is the case for some people. Then you might have to look at calories or look at macros or something just to kind of be in a ballpark. Do you take supplements while doing the carnivore diet? So not everyone does. I think that the diet is very nutrient dense and many people don't need to. I'm of the mind that if you have lab work done and it indicates that you are deficient in something, then it's okay to supplement that temporarily and see if you can bring it up. And so that's my case. I recently found that I was deficient in vitamin D and magnesium, and have some liver damage from some of the medications that I used to be on for my psoriasis. Now, let me be clear, none of this is new from the carnivore diet. This is all long-standing stuff, and I was hoping it would be better from being on the diet, and it is a little, but it's still deficient. So I'm currently supplementing something for my liver. It's called NAC, N-acetylcysteine, and then I'm also taking vitamin D and getting tons of sun and magnesium. Do you add liver? I recently started being consistent with that because of those labs that I had done. So yes, I take an ounce of liver every other day. Okay, let's see what you guys are asking. I have intolerances to pork and poultry. Could I make carnivore work with just eggs, beef, and dairy? Absolutely, girl. Lots of people just do beef. So if you can do eggs, beef, and dairy, you're gonna have a lot of variation, really. So yeah, that's perfect. You could even do just, if you have any issues with dairy, you could do just beef and eggs and be awesome. Now there are some other red meat choices that are really good, like lamb. Lamb is so good. I mean, goat's really good if you have access to it. Of course, game meats are great. But if you want to get a little experimental, I would at least try some lamb. You might love it as much as I do. Some people don't like it, so I won't make any promises. I take 800 milligrams of magnesium per day. Is this too much? If I lower the dose, I get leg cramps. Okay, so this is another question where I feel like if there's a subjective thing, then that's the right amount for you, right? So if you're having leg cramps and then supplementing magnesium takes your leg cramps away, clearly you need the extra magnesium. And if decreasing that dose at all is making them come back, then sounds like you need that much. So I would encourage you to continue getting regular labs to make sure nothing is getting super thrown off, but sounds to me like you're on the right track. Okay, one more question in there. I have SIBO and I heard carnivore is good for it. Oh shit, I just deleted the question, darn it. I didn't get the rest of the question. So if you can please write that for me again. I'm so sorry. I meant to like scroll up so I could read the rest and I hit the X. Darn it. You didn't explain the high glucose after eating beef. I'm on carnivore and afraid to have spikes. I'm not sure what the beginning of that question was, but generally beef is not going to raise your glucose that much. Some people, if they have large amounts of protein in one bout, their glucose does go up more, especially people that are more insulin resistant. So if that's the case for you, if you're checking your blood sugar and you're fighting that it goes up when you eat beef, I would decrease the dosage, right? I would decrease the amount of beef that you're eating in one sitting, or actually just the amount of protein in general, to something like 20 to 30 grams per meal, and then add fat to that if you need more calories, and you'll likely find that your blood sugar is gonna go down. Okay, so thank you for putting that again. I have SIBO and wanted to know how to start carnivore. I hear it's good for SIBO. Yes, it's great for a lot of those kind of digestive and overgrowth type of things. So how to start? First of all, understand what the carnivore diet is. So I would say it is the ability to eat any animal product. That includes any kind of meat, dairy, and eggs. Now, many people are more sensitive to dairy, and there are carbs in there are carbs in dairy. There is carbs in dairy. There's carbs in dairy, and some of those dairy products are going to have more carbs than others. So in the case of SIBO, I would try to definitely do the lower carb options, or not do dairy at all, at least to start. But basically, eat whatever animal food you like and have access to and can afford. Eat 1 to 3 meals a day. Eat until you're full. That's really it for the beginning. After a while, you can get a little fancier depending on how you're feeling and how you're responding. But at first, that's it. But I do recommend researching, at least finding other people's stories, and understanding why you're doing this, and not just, oh, I'll just try this now. Okay, now this, and just changing all the time. But if this feels like something good to you, find people on Instagram and YouTube and find research articles if you're a nerd like me, and understand what is the mechanism of what you're doing. And that's going to help you make the right choices about what to do, and also defend yourself when people inevitably start giving you lots of crap about it. Did you use enemas on your journey? I have Candida overgrowth and I am on the carnivore diet now, but don't know what else I have to do to get rid of Candida. So Candida, I don't think it can live long in the absence of carbs. So you should, I don't know what your symptoms are of Candida, if you're having like thrush or something like that, but I would ask you to investigate, do you still have it? And if so, how do you know? If you do still have some symptoms, so you have it, then I would evaluate what you're eating, and is there any carbs in that, even artificial sugars and stuff like that. To answer your question though, no, I never did enemas. I am not much of a butt girl. Okay, that's a weird thing that I've definitely never said live, but no, the idea of an enema is so weird to me, and I used to be so constipated, and I tried to give myself an enema once, and it was just like the worst thing ever. And now, thank God, on this diet, I poop so much more normally, and I don't have to mess with any of that. But some people swear by them, so okay. Do you have an occasional fruit or veggie or wine? No, I don't. I've been carnivore consistently for 1.5 years, and I did have 1 glass of wine during that time. I was on a date. This was probably 9 months ago, maybe 1 year ago. And I thought, oh, I'll just have a glass of wine and just, it's fine, I'll just see. And I just didn't really enjoy it. It didn't taste that good to me anymore, and it was expensive, and I just felt like, what's the point, I guess? So I just haven't really wanted wine. And yeah, I don't know. I guess same with the fruits and veggies. And I will say a little bit with the fruit. For a long time, I was kind of scared to eat it because I thought that the sweet flavor might kind of increase my cravings for carbs. And so I just avoided them. Now I feel like I'm kind of out of the woods there when it comes to fruit, at least. But I just don't see the need. In fact, that takes me to a question that somebody asked me today. Let me give you a little background about this person. From looking at his Instagram page, it looks like he's in medical school. He's probably, I don't know, early 20s. He's just a kid. And he's not even following me. So he asked me a question, but I'm not sure that he actually is interested in the carnivore diet. I think it was more of like wanting to face off a little. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But anyway, his question was, why don't you recommend eating fruits and veggies? And so I did respond. I don't always respond to these kinds of things if I feel like it's just a little bit of a baiting. But I said, actually, let me read to you what I wrote. I said, at best, I think they're completely unnecessary. And at worst, I think they can actually be harmful for various reasons. They contain anti-nutrients, which can interfere with absorption of vitamins and minerals. They contain fiber, which is indigestible and can create lots of bowel issues. They're often sprayed with chemicals, picked when not ripe, and shipped halfway across the world. They can raise glucose and insulin, and they can cause people to continue craving carbs and sugar because of the sweet taste of fruit. Oh, and fructose can cause liver issues. Okay, so that's what I said. And then his response to that, I mean, he was nice, but he basically was like, do you have any studies to back any of this up? And so I actually did send him a few studies. Basically, I spent a lot of time on this interaction. I don't often do that because I do not have the time. But basically, I sent him an article about how people with chronic constipation often finally have relief of symptoms by going on a lower or no fiber diet. And that's also something I see every single day at work with my patients that come in with diverticulitis, and something that I personally experienced because I've always been constipated. And now I'm not on a carnivore diet. And let's see, I sent him something about the effects of fruit on the liver, and I sent him some different articles about anti-nutrients, including a paper written by Sally Norton. And, you know, we'll see what happens. I don't know that he'll respond, but it's good for me, I think, to sort of challenge myself in that way and be able to, I like to be in a position where I understand why I believe this. At one point, I just believed it, but now I'm getting it to the point where I want to understand why I believe it. And so, you know, I like the article stuff. I'm a nerd. I do that for work anyway. Okay, let's see. 35 here in Taiwan. Just came back from the gym, eating my 2 chicken legs, cooked in the oven. Love the simplicity of this diet. Yes, I love it too. I mean, everything is so quick and simple. One of the best things about it for sure. How do you beat the cravings for carbs and sugar? That's a big question. And I see my friend Frank is here, and this is a big one for him. We've talked about it a lot. So he says he's living proof that the carnivore diet can help with binge eating. So how to get over these cravings for carbs and sugar? There's a few things. First of all, the carnivore diet helps with that so much. So if you just kind of hang on that hope, that will get you a little ways. Just knowing that there's an end to this for you. Trust me, there is an end to this. I was such a binge eater. I was so addicted to sugar. I literally never thought I could ever go a month without eating sugar, and now I've gone a year and a half. I didn't even realize it until, gosh, I don't know, 4 or 5 months in that I hadn't binged. I hadn't had any sweets. It was a freaking miracle. And so how to get over those cravings? You just have to get by for a little while. So for a good 4 to 6 weeks, when you have a craving for sugar, eat something that's got salt and fat, okay? Even if you're overeating, even if you're gaining a little bit of weight, at the beginning, that's the best thing you can do to overcome those cravings. Because if you want ice cream, but you eat 6 eggs and some bacon, you're gonna be at least a little bit fuller. You're gonna be a little bit busy for a minute. And then at the very least, that craving is gonna be a little bit softer. So that's one thing. Eat the fat and the salt. The other thing is read up all you can, watching people's testimonies on YouTube or Instagram, or reading a book, which I have one I highly recommend. It's called Brain Over Binge by Katherine Hansen. If you can be exposing yourself to that kind of stuff while you're struggling, it's so helpful because you can understand you're not the only one, and other people have made it through this too. And then avoid all sweet tastes. And I'm talking all. No gum, no mints, no honey, Some people can't even tolerate the sweetness of their toothpaste. So if that's you, you need to use some nasty clay toothpaste or something. But that will help a ton. Do not try to ease the craving by having like a 0 calories fake sugar, even electrolyte drink or something. That sweetness is going to make you continue to crave those things. So do not do that. What else? Make sure you're getting plenty of sleep. Make sure you're drinking plenty of water. Those are my main pieces of advice. One of the few sugar cravings I've had was vanilla ice cream. That's interesting. I don't know what's in that maybe would make you crave it besides the sweetness, but like I know that chocolate's very high in magnesium, so a lot of times people will crave chocolate, but really what they need is the magnesium. And an interesting thing about that is women need more magnesium when they're about to menstruate, I think, and so that's why they often crave chocolate. Joel says, takes me about 5 to 7 days on carnivore, then I'm good. But even if I have one drink, boom, then I want chocolate or something. Thanks for the book recommendation. Yes, if you are making good progress and then you're like, ooh, I've kicked this, I'm gonna have some sweets. Oh, frick, it just starts all over again. So I would highly, highly recommend avoiding that. Oh, JS Ferguson, great advice. I'm a new follower and appreciate your live sessions. Yay, well that makes me feel good. That's why I'm doing it. Okay, back to my questions. Carnivore dog. Okay, if any of you don't know, my dog Lucy, she's a Doberman. She's been on a carnivore diet for, 9 months now. And it is a carnivore diet, but basically I feed her raw meat, a little bit of eggs, some bones. That's about it. And so the questions about that are how much costs? So I don't know if they're just asking about cost, but I'll talk about cost. And then someone else just said in general, talk about carnivore dog. So let me tell you a few things about it. One is how to know how much food your dog or cat, I suppose, needs. And it's about 2 to 3% of their body weight in food each day. So if we want to do some easy math and your dog weighs 100 pounds, they need 2 to 3 pounds of food per day. If you were to change that to ounces, let's say for 2 pounds, it'd be 32 ounces of food. Or 3 pounds would be, 48 ounces of food. So somewhere between 32 and 48 ounces of food is going to be how much your animal needs per day. Now my dog weighs 60 pounds. She needs 19 to 20 ounces of food per day. So when I first started doing this, I was pretty particular. I would get out my little food scale and I would weigh out the food and I would make sure it fell somewhere between that 19 and 29 ounces. But now I've been doing it so long I can easily eyeball it. And so I don't really mess with the measuring. Okay, so that's how much. Now, how many times you should feed them per day is kind of up to you. If you feed them now once a day, you could feed them once a day with meat. But if you like to feed them twice a day, you could do that. I like to feed Lucy twice a day, morning and evening. That's just kind of our routine. And then what to feed them. There are lots of resources on the internet about this, and I did some research, and now I kind of just have my own style. And so let me also, a reference that could be useful is there is a Facebook group called Raw Feeding University, RFU, and you can join that group, and there's quite a bit of information on there. It's a very big group, and it's not all meat only, but it's still very useful for getting this kind of information. So check that out. And then I find that if Lucy does not have enough bone in her diet, that her stools get pretty loose. But if she has a ton of bone, then they get really hard and almost like sandy. So you got to kind of find the right balance of fat to bone. And so the things I feed her raw ground beef, chicken feet, chicken legs, chicken thighs, chicken quarters, chicken breast, lots of chicken because it's cheap. Sometimes I give her pork. Sometimes I just get scraps from a farmer, so it's just whatever they have. That's often deer meat or something like that. I give her eggs, both cooked and raw. I give her offal. Is that how you say it? O-F-F-A-L, the organ meats. I always said offal, but then I heard someone say offal, so I wonder if I was mispronouncing it. But yeah, I give her all those things because they do need some percentage of bone, lean, fat, offal. They need all of those things. So I just try to give her a little bit of all those things. And then based on the consistency of her poop, I do more or less fat and more or less bone. So about 2 weeks ago, her stools were a little bit harder. And so that's when I got like a whole pork butt which is pretty high in fat. Normally I wouldn't give her that because I don't want her to have that much fat, but since her stools were really hard, I increased the fat and I included pork in that month's worth of food. And then also when her stools are more loose, if I'm giving her chicken or something like that, I'll take the skin off. But when they're more hard, I leave the skin on because again, the fat seems to help. And so what I do typically is I buy 3 to 4 weeks worth of food and I just put it all on my counter and I sort of prepare everything, cut it up, and then I put the right amount in a Ziploc bag, that amount for one whole day. And then I split that one bag into 2 meals per day. And I keep most of the bags in the freezer till I'm ready for them. Actually, let me just show you. I have some right here. So these are the 4 bags that are in the fridge right now. And so like this will be for tomorrow. There's a chicken thigh in there with the skin on it, a chicken foot, and some ground beef. And then another day is shredded pork, which usually I do cook the pork. You can't really see it because of all the fat. I don't know why I cook the pork. I just feel weird about raw pork. But I don't feel that weird about raw chicken. I used to, now I'm over it. So I keep about 3 or 4 meals in here in the fridge, and then the rest are in my freezer. So that's how I do that. As far as the cost, her old food was like fancy kibble, and so it cost me probably $60 a month. And but she had a lot of health problems. She had to go to the vet all the time and have surgeries and stuff. That crap is expensive. And so now I pay about probably more like $80 a month. It's more expensive. But overall, we're saving money and she freaking loves it. Oh shoot, she's gonna run off. She's a scaredy cat. But she heard me getting those bags of food out of the fridge, and so she came in here thinking she's gonna get some of it. Okay, so if you guys have any other questions about carnivore dog, we're on a roll. Let me know and we'll go over them. And then I've got a few more questions here, but there's a few in this box as well. Okay, Frank says he does 150 grams of fat and 150 grams of protein. He's talking about for himself, not his dog. And I make it a goal that at the end of the day, my protein is never higher than my fat. Everyone has their own ratio. Okay, so that means that at the most, your protein is about 30% if you're always going 1-to-1 or higher with fat. So you must do better with about a 70-30 fat to protein ratio. Hey Sarah, you need that for your dog. I mean, I think it's great. Your dog will think it's great, trust me. Okay, this is my friend Roxana. Costco has 10-pound beef rolls. Ask in the back. Okay, so that's good to know. They do have 10-pound beef rolls at Walmart as well. That's usually where I get them. And the cheap 73.27 is like $2 something a pound, close to $3 a pound. So that's usually what I get, but I don't know, maybe it's even cheaper at Costco. Okay, L. O'Reilly says, can you explain the macros for a balanced carnivore diet? That's kind of a misnomer, right? Most people would say a carnivore diet's not balanced anyway, but the thing about macros on a carnivore diet, most people are gonna fall somewhere between 60% fat and 85% fat. Anything less than 60% fat is like very lean, and you're probably gonna be pretty hungry, and you're probably gonna have some pretty hard stools. Anything above 85% is like basically just fat, and you're probably gonna have some pretty loose stools. So some people do go past those ends of the spectrum for short bits, but most people are somewhere in between. Now, if you just eat animal products and you don't even look up the macros, you're probably gonna fall somewhere between about 65 and 70% fat naturally, just because that's what animal foods have. So I'm not really answering your question, but basically I suggest most people start at about a 70-30 fat to protein ratio, because that's easiest to do without really trying. And then based on how you're feeling with that, you can either increase fat a little bit or decrease fat a little bit. And how you would know if you should increase fat a little bit is you're not having good energy, you're craving fat, your stools are a little bit hard. Maybe you want to be in a higher level of ketosis for some reason, maybe for some kind of health thing that you're working on, or in my case, in the past, it was just I was following this particular doctor that promoted a high level of ketosis for autoimmune healing, and so I liked to do more fat for that. Okay, so any of those reasons would be valid for increasing fat. Now, how to know if you should decrease fat? Oh, here's Lucy. I want you to get to see her. She's so dang cute, but she just is scared of my tripod. Anyway, if you need to decrease fat, you're having abdominal discomfort, you're having nausea, the thought of eating fat is like disgusting to you. You're having loose stools, if I didn't already say that. Yeah, those are the main things. Or some people just find that it's a little bit easier to maintain their weight or achieve their goals in the gym as far as like building muscle and stuff on a lower fat diet. So either of those may be reasons for you to adjust to make your diet more balanced for you. How about that? All right, I've got a very important question here that I'm gonna read quite a bit because I reached out to some of my friends to answer this question. So the question is, I'm transitioning from a mostly plant-based diet. How long will it take for my body to adjust? Okay, that's the question. Now, I have been plant-based, but it was a long, long time ago and only for a month. So I don't feel like I'm a very good judge of that. So I reached out to two of my friends who were both vegans for a long time. One was James the carnivorist and one was Kevin the visionary. And I want to share what they said so that, Emily, you can have a good answer here. So I didn't write down who said what. So I'm just gonna read the whole thing and not give them credit, okay? But, okay, one of them said, you have to be gentle with the transition, go slow. I think this was James. He said, be keto-ish at first. Get used to adding animal products as you get over the mindset that your plate must be filled with plants. You will have low stomach acid, so you may have to supplement with betaine, hydrochloric acid, digestive enzymes. For some, it can take a couple weeks to a month. Some need longer to get the stomach acid up and to digest correctly. He said, in general, just go slow. Oh, I just repeated that again. It's not repeating. In general, go slow. Get used to the idea of 100% animal foods on your plate for a couple meals per week as you lessen the amount of veggies over time. Okay, so that's James's advice. Now, I know one of his biggest influences is Sally Norton, who's all about oxalates, and so that's what she would suggest. And I don't know if he learned that from his experience or if he learned that from her, but she would definitely suggest keeping some low oxalate foods in your diet for a while to prevent like huge oxalate dumping symptoms. So if you have questions about that or about that enzyme he was talking about, DM me, Emily, and I will send you that information. But just to kind of just to summarize here, go slow, work up to having some meals, a few meals per week be just meat, but not like everything for the whole week is just meat. Just work up to that really slowly. And then Kevin said, I think it depends on body type, but for me it took about 3 months to stop craving the juice and fruit. I would have to have it at least once a week in the beginning. I think the most important thing is educating yourself on how the change will help improve your health. So basically both of them said go slow. So people often ask me, should you just dive right in or should you ease into a carnivore diet? And in my case, the best thing was diving right in and going cold turkey. And I think that helps a lot of people. But it sounds like for someone who was mostly plant-based, that a slower transition is probably better. So keep that in mind. Jennifer asked, do I ever experience histamine intolerance? I don't think so. I've paid attention to that and I haven't necessarily noticed that. But for those of you who maybe aren't familiar with what that means, many people are, well, let's just talk about what histamine is. It's a chemical that can be produced by your body or found in foods that can create histamine issues. So the most common ones that people know about are like watery eyes, sneezy, runny nose, that kind of thing that we hear about for why you would need to take an antihistamine for some kind of seasonal allergies. That's a type of histamine. But there are lots of other weird symptoms with histamine intolerance, and some of those are like issues with your period, hives and skin issues, depression, difficulty sleeping, digestive issues. There are so many. It's almost, I feel like, impossible to really determine sometimes what's causing this stuff because you'd never think it was histamine. But if you, okay, so research that if you feel like that may apply to you. But if you're known to have histamine issues or you think you might and you want to figure it out, the best thing to do is an elimination of histamine foods or foods that can cause more histamine production in your body, okay? And so those are any kind of aged food, like, well, even just meat and stuff that's been, or any food that's been sitting in your fridge for days. You want to have things be frozen immediately if you're not going to eat them immediately, or like leftovers, if you even keep leftovers, freeze them immediately and then eat them immediately once thawed. That will help. And then things that take a long time to cook, like slow cooked foods, broths that are cooked over a long time. I think even like sous vide food that maybe is cooked for 24 hours, any of those things, the longer it's cooking, the longer it has to build up histamine. And then aged meats, so the meat that when it comes from the butcher, it's hanging in the rack, or I don't know the words, but it's hanging in there aging for like a month, however long they do it, that's going to build up histamine as well. So you want to try to do unaged meats if you can. And aged cheeses, even things like chocolate. Chocolate doesn't contain histamine if I'm remembering correctly, but it does create a reaction in your body that makes histamine build up inside of you. So that's something to avoid. I mean, if you're carnivore, you're not having it anyway, I suppose. And then there are some medications related to that. So if you can figure out all the triggers and get rid of those, you're good. But have fun. It's hard. It's really hard. And yeah, Carnivore Chick said freezing leftovers is helpful. Oh, my friend Sarah had severe histamine intolerance and has been able to heal. If you need help, you can work with someone. So Sarah in the Buff Wellness, she is actually an NTP, a nutritional therapeutic practitioner, and she sounds like she's had experience with histamine and could help you. So I already forgot who asked that question. Oh, it was Tara. Tara, reach out to In the Buff Wellness. She can probably answer your question even better than I did. Carnivore Chick said bacon can be an issue too, unless I buy it straight from the farmer who cuts the pork belly and freezes immediately. Yeah, I mean, all those cured meats, they're so much more shelf stable because of the curing. So I imagine they're sitting at the store for freaking ever, building up histamines. Barlow wants to know my thoughts on raw meat. Well, go for it if you like it. I'm not into that. I think from like a bacterial standpoint, I don't really think it's that big of a deal, especially if you're getting your meat from a trusted source. But I just don't find it that appetizing. I think it's really tasty when it's cooked a little, though I do find that I like my food more and more rare the longer I do this. Holy crap, it's almost 7. Okay, I gotta get through my questions because we are finishing this today, you guys. Okay, so I hope that's enough thoughts on raw meat because I gotta speed this up. You guys are too much fun. Oh wait, I forgot we didn't start on the hour. Okay, we're good. Okay, now let's see. On average, how many hours do you meal prep in a week? So I probably spend an hour a week meal prepping, and that's because the majority of my meal prep is having my food chopped and frozen. So for example, not necessarily chopped, but prepped and frozen. So for example, when I buy ground beef, I will take 2 or 3 pounds of it and make it into patties and throw it in the freezer. Then I take those frozen patties and cook them directly from frozen, and they're ready in 10 minutes. So that's one way. And then the other thing I eat a ton of is chopped chuck roast and beef fat. And so when I bring those home, I cut them into little squares, put them in individual servings and bags, and freeze them. And then I put that frozen onto the air fryer, cook it up in 10 minutes. So that's the majority of it. But sometimes I will make like, a dozen chicken legs or some ground beef, a few pounds of ground beef, and then I'll keep that either in the fridge or the freezer. Now, if you have histamine issues, I wouldn't keep it in the fridge, but I don't seem to. So it's kind of an afterthought. The few things that I prep and throw in the freezer, and then everything else is usually, I'm already cooking that, and so I just cook extra, and then I save some of it. And then basically I only do that for days when I go to work anyway, so I have something prepped and ready to take. Raider Outlaw says next to nothing prepared for me. So yeah, I mean, you don't have to do a lot of meal prep because you don't have to do a lot of cutting and chopping like you have to with the vegetables. It's just easy. And most of these foods you can cook from frozen. I don't know if you guys know that, but I have some videos about cooking from frozen on YouTube. That is one of my best hacks as a carnivore. But even if you don't do that, like just everything is quick. It takes 3 minutes to cook up some eggs and bacon. Well, bacon maybe takes like 6 minutes, but eggs take about 3. All right, what's this question in here? Joseph wants to know, I'm starting the carnivore diet after doing keto from time to time. My cholesterol is a little high and my doctor's talking about medicine, but I've watched too many Dr. Berry videos for that. Is there a protocol on the carnivore diet to address existing high cholesterol? Okay, so that's a bit of a loaded question, Joseph. So the first thing I think is to understand what really matters when it comes to cholesterol. And so I don't know your numbers. I'm happy to discuss them with you if you want to send me a DM. But if your triglycerides are low, and I mean low, like under 50, most people's aren't, but some people's are that are carnivore, and or your HDL is high, and I mean pretty high, like over 60, then you really don't have to worry much about the total cholesterol and the LDL. And that's because being on a super low carb diet and keeping triglycerides so low and HDL so high basically automatically indicates that your those LDL particles are large, buoyant, fluffy LDL particles that are not an issue, versus small, dense LDL particles that are an issue and can create atherosclerotic plaques. And so when triglycerides are high, that means you're having more, your blood sugar is higher, your HbA1c is probably higher, and those LDL particles are being exposed to glucose and they're being damaged, okay? So what I would suggest is, if you're feeling comfortable about doing this diet, oh my gosh, for a second I thought I had a bloody nose. That was weird. And so give it about 6 months and then have your labs redone. You will almost certainly see that your triglycerides are coming down and your HDL is going up. If that's not the case, reconsider what you're doing, but that will almost certainly be the case. And for many people, their total cholesterol and their LDL will come down too. But what I'm saying is that may or may not happen, and I wouldn't worry too much about it. There are tons of resources out there to back up what I'm saying, and if you want me to send you some, I will. So DM me about that too. I've made some videos about this stuff too on YouTube and Instagram, but I know it's so hard to search on Instagram. It's hard to find that stuff. All right, almost done, guys. Oh, that's it. I made it to the bottom of the list. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed that, please like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments if you have any additional questions. I'll try to answer them there or feature them in an upcoming video.